Governor Jerry Brown has declared a state of emergency in Orange County in response to a fast-growing fire.
And on campus, DPS is debriefing students after last week's false shooting scare.
Plus, students at one LA charter school hosted an event to celebrate their first ever Indigenous Peoples Day.
Annenberg TV News is next.
Live from USC, you're watching Annenberg TV News.
I've never been that close to flames like that before in my life.
The governor has declared a state of emergency in Orange County. A brush fire in the area has forced the evacuation of more than 1,000 homes. Good evening, I'm Sophia Bosk.
And I'm Dan Toomey. Evacuation centers are opening as residents are forced to flee. Firefighters say the fire has burned more than 4,000 acres in the Anaheim Hills area. Annenberg Media's Sonica Bargo is at the command post with the latest on the firefight.
Thanks, Sophia and Dan. That's right. We're here in Anaheim where the fire has grown substantially since this morning. If you take a look behind me, you can see some of those clouds of smoke. Standing here, I can smell it. It is also really windy out here, which isn't helping the effort. I'm sure there are about 500 firefighters on the ground right now, but that number is expected to grow to 1,000 by tomorrow morning. We've also seen several helicopters coming by, circling, filling up the hose, and spraying the fire. Let's take a look at some of the video from earlier today. Now, as you can see, the fire has grown a lot since this morning. It started out at 25 acres, but quickly grew to over 4,000, like you've mentioned, and mandatory evacuations have been implemented in several areas. We spoke earlier today to one resident who was evacuated from his home.
I smelled the fire and it was kind of smoky, but this was something else because I've never seen so many people drive so erratically. There were people like going 70 down our street. I did actually almost get hit by a guy. He almost sideswiped me because he wasn't in the actual lane to turn.
So as you can see, there is a helicopter behind me. It's been spraying, periodically coming back and refilling. Now, more residents like the one we spoke to have been evacuated. About an hour and a half ago, there were 70 in the East Anaheim Community Center, but that number will probably grow as more people evacuate. Right now, there aren't any signs of containment, but there is a press conference happening right now, and we'll have more information from that later in the show. And the Anaheim Fire and Rescue Department advises you to follow them on Facebook and Twitter. They'll be sending out regular updates from there, and we'll have more information later in the show. Live from Anaheim, I'm Sonica Bargo, Annenberg Media. Back to you.
Thank you, Sonica. We'll be checking in on her later. And several fast-moving wildfires have broken out in Northern California, killing at least 10 people, destroying more than 1,500 structures, and forcing thousands to evacuate. More than 14 large fires are burning north of San Francisco, fueled by dry and windy conditions in the area. Evacuations have been ordered across Napa and Sonoma counties, and officials say they're still working on a strategy to confront the blaze.
I think what we're going to find when we talk to seasoned fire professionals here in the next several days is they're going to talk about conditions that they have not seen before. And I think we've raised the bar again in California in just terms of the conditions that we're facing and the destruction and devastation.
At least 57,000 acres have burned since Sunday night. 20,000 residents have been evacuated as of this evening. And on a different note, USC's Department of Public Safety is taking steps to reassure the campus community a week after a false report of gunfire. Our reporter Sebastian Vega talked with DPS Chief John Thomas about how USC is working to reassure the entire community, especially the students who were affected the most.
Today, representatives from DPS, the Marshall School of Business, and Student Affairs visited the class where the false shooting report began last Monday. Today's session was closed to the media. The goal was to give students a chance to provide feedback and talk about their experiences.
Talking to those students was important from two fronts. One, find out how they're doing, as you know, how are they holding up. Give them access to me in the event that they have specific questions, and then to gauge exactly what what can we learn from this?
Last Monday, some students in this classroom barricaded the door and called DPS after their professor said she heard gunshots. Soon after, campus police issued a shelter-in-place alert. That means everyone should stay indoors.
Obviously, they've looked at the video training and they've gone through some training and understood exactly what to do, because that's what they did.
Thomas said the students handled the incident well, but he thinks USC could do a better job communicating with the community during emergencies. DPS did not issue a lockdown during the event, which would have resulted in locking all doors and gates.
We need some work on educating people as to what some of those terminologies mean and what does the corresponding actions mean. If you don't know, just assume the worst.
The department says it will continue addressing concerns by visiting more schools later this fall. For Annenberg Media, I'm Sebastian Vega.
Thanks, Sebastian. USC's School of Cinematic Arts is deciding whether or not it will accept a large donation from disgraced media mogul Harvey Weinstein. Weinstein was fired from his own company yesterday following accusations of sexual harassment from 8 women. The disgraced Hollywood executive announced a $5 million scholarship for female directors at USC when allegations arose. In a statement to Annenberg Media, the School of Cinematic Arts said, the USC School of Cinematic Arts began discussion with Mr. Weinstein over a year ago to fund a $5 million endowment in his mother's honor, dedicated to scholarships for women filmmakers, particularly those from minority communities. This endowment was pledged. The college did not provide any other information or comment on Weinstein's pledge. We talked to the president for USC's Women of Cinematic Arts. She says the school should not accept Weinstein's money.
He's using this to buy back some of the clout and some of the prestige that he's lost through all of this. Like, if his own company is firing him from their board of directors, why should we feel indebted to take that money?
Weinstein's film company has produced many hits, including Pulp Fiction, Good Will Hunting, and Shakespeare in Love, which won the Academy Award for Best Picture. Dr. Laura Mosqueda is the new interim dean of the Keck School of Medicine. She replaces Rohit Varma, who stepped down last week before the LA Times published a report about being disciplined for sexual harassment in 2003. Dr. Laura Mosqueda is the director of the National Center on Elder Abuse. Her work affected change in policy for preventing abuse of older adults. As a geriatric and family medicine doctor, she has taught professionals in criminal justice and social services.
USC students are worried about the impact of President Trump's decision on birth control. Employers are no longer required to provide birth control coverage in health insurance plans. Under Obamacare, employers were required to offer birth control without a copay. Now employers can drop that coverage as long as they notify their workers. This could impact the 55 million women who get birth control without a copayment. Alexia Matthews of the campus group Women Speak says she sees this latest move as another attack on women's reproductive rights.
Anything that is not going to empower women to be able to make their own choices, especially with their health, is going to be something that we are going to speak out against. Me personally, I have been on birth control for a few years now due to health reasons, and so it's kind of terrifying for me to think that I may have to pay $500 every month for the specific type of birth control that I'm on.
The Trump administration says that the rules go into effect immediately to, quote, safeguard deeply held religious beliefs of Americans who provide health insurance to their employees. And 2 members of the Native American Student Union are in the studio to discuss the LA City Council vote to stop recognizing Columbus Day. The City Council member Mitch O'Farrell joined LA students in celebrating its replacement, Indigenous Peoples Day.
Plus, find out how USC is making mental health resources available to students this month.
Recently, our country has witnessed catastrophic devastation. Hurricanes and flooding have upended lives and livelihoods.
Across this great country, Americans have answered the call.
That special calling that compels us, when others are down, to step up and do whatever it takes.
America's at her best when, against all odds, we come together and lift each other up.
Please donate to oneamericaappeal.org. America needs you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Listen, I realize that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change because you judge me for having a problem. No one is going to know that I need help. I need help. I know that no one is going to judge me for having a problem. I realize that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change because you listened.
Bye-bye.
Hi. Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably gonna turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right?
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
Students from Los Feliz Charter School for the Arts celebrated the first ever Indigenous Peoples Day. This is the new name given to Columbus Day. I visited the LAUSD school to see how some are celebrating the new holiday. Elementary school students shared art and poems celebrating the indigenous population of Los Angeles. The principal of the school says it is important to acknowledge Native populations.
The recognition of Indigenous Peoples Day for us takes away that top-down narrative, that one lens perspective, and really brings up a history component.
Los Angeles is home to more than 140,000 Native Americans. City councilman and a member of the Wyandot tribe led the drive to rename Columbus Day.
This is one small step to social justice for Native Americans.
On August 30th, Los Angeles City Council and Los Angeles County voted to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day over Columbus Day. Earlier this morning, there was a white cover on the Columbus statue in Grand Park. By mid-afternoon, the cover was gone, but the statue is still protected from vandals. However, not everyone is optimistic about the name change from Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. As you can see, they have put up fencing to protect this Columbus statue right here outside of Stanley Moss Courthouse. But some argue that Columbus should not be erased from our history.
It is now a universal theme that has become synonymous with the celebration of not only Italian-American heritage, but the celebration of all cultures and the acknowledgement of the sacrifices and contributions made by their parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents to this great nation. And this is what Columbus Day represents and why we should not turn our backs on it now.
Other cities such as Austin and Salt Lake City have also adopted the name change. And here with me now are two students from USC's Native American Student Union, Jacob Broussard and Emily Sarah. Jacob and Emily, thank you so much for joining me today. So my first question for you is, how does this new holiday affect you as a Native American, and why were you so opposed to Columbus Day?
Well, for me, it's an amazing change that they've changed it to Indigenous Peoples Day, because in the narrative of U.S. history and world history, we've been severely underrepresented. Even at USC, we're in a very severe minority. And I think that this acknowledgement of the fact that we exist and we've been part of this history and the wrongdoings that have been done against us, it's really great to see that maybe this can change going forward, that will be part of that narrative.
Absolutely. And I think two things that we were working on as a community and as the Native American Student Union were reconciliation and truth. And those two things are something that by abolishing Columbus Day and replacing it with Indigenous Peoples Day, we were able to take some very serious positive strides in the direction of. And particularly, just as Emily mentioned, changing the narrative, expressing our own stories. And this doesn't just impact one holiday, one observed holiday where workers have off. It's going to impact public school curriculums. And it's going to impact the way we as a student organization interact. We work a lot with the LAUSD Indian Education Program under Title VII. And it's something that we love to see, because now we can give voice to those students as we give voice to the Native American population here at USC.
Are there any specific changes within the LAUSD education system that you're wanting to see as of now?
I think more of a focus on the fact that Los Angeles is on Tongva and Chumash land, the fact that Los Angeles was built on the backs of Native Americans and slavery among natives. It's still, they're talking about it, but they haven't quite gotten there, and I think that needs to be a bigger part of the curriculum, that students know where they are and the fact that all of America is indigenous land, but specifically in LA, how it affects students here and lives here.
Absolutely. I think the adage remains that if we don't understand our history, it's doomed to repeat itself. And even if it doesn't look like what it did in the past with land dispossession and violent colonization, what we need to do is we need to be able to represent the proper stories and the proper histories in a public school setting, in all school settings, in order to inform children and fight some of this racial discrimination, racial stereotypes that we're still seeing.
Well, thank you both so much. It was a pleasure to have you in the studio. Dan, back to you at the desk.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sophia. And thank you for our guests to taking the time out of their day to come here. Now, folks, if anybody took advantage of the warm weather this weekend, I hope you made a trip out to the beach because it looks like it's going to get a little bit colder. Lindsay, what's the full report on weather for this week?
Well, it is Los Angeles, so it's pretty much always warm enough to go to the beach, but you won't see it reaching 100 degrees like it did this weekend anytime soon. Let's take a look at your current conditions. As you can see, right now it's 76 degrees. Today, during the day, it was about 85. That's going to slowly go down throughout the week. Now let's see how it is in Big Bear and the desert. It's starting to cool down in Big Bear, but the desert, it's still 90 degrees there. Now going up into San Fernando Valley, we're seeing it also start to cool down there a little bit. Over the weekend, this reached about 90 degrees. Coming back here closer to USC, as you can see, tomorrow is going to be about 84 degrees in this area. Again, this weekend, it was 96 in the Coliseum. Now going on to our 5-day forecast, through the week, you're going to see it cooling down into the 70s. Unclear if it'll heat up again into the weekend, but hopefully it won't get as hot as it was last week. Now, also, a red flag warning has been issued for Los Angeles County. This warning is triggered by high wind and low humidity conditions. During red flag warnings, conditions are favorable for explosive fire growth. This is being classified as a moderate to strong Santa Ana winds event and is the first red flag warning of the fall season. The warning has been extended up the coast toward the Santa Monica Mountains and through the San Fernando Valley, even reaching here in downtown Los Angeles. In the mountains, gusts have been reaching 60+ miles per hour this afternoon, but they're supposed to slow down as the warning is lifted at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Back to you, Dan.
All right, thanks, Lindsay. Of course, got to watch out for those conditions. Moving on, the Academic Culture Assembly is encouraging students to take care of their mental health. October is Mental Health Awareness Month. The theme of this year's Mental Health Awareness Month is uncovering hidden wounds. This week, ACA placed a chalkboard outside VKC, that's the building with the flags. Students are invited to anonymously share their personal struggles with depression and anxiety.
I felt like the chalkboard was a really good way for people to kind of see, like what other students are struggling with. It gives you a voice without having to reveal too much about yourself, and it's just like a really fun way for people to see that they're not alone in whatever they're struggling with.
The aim is to get students to open up about mental health and remove the stigma surrounding it. Activities will continue throughout the month.
And on a different note, hey Dan, do you have a favorite MLB sports team?
I did, Sophia. My Sox lost pretty bad today, so I wasn't looking forward to talking about it. Nick, do you have any other MLB updates for us?
I'm also a Red Sox fan and do not want to talk about it, Dan. Thank you guys so much. It's a big day for baseball. We'll recap the day's matchups, give a live update on the Indians-Yankees game, and talk about the Dodgers' potential NLCS berth. We'll also talk about how water polo had an uncharacteristic weekend, playing 2 competitive games against Long Beach State and UC Santa Barbara, and we'll look back at the football game against Oregon State this past Saturday and how injuries may affect the game versus Utah.
idea. You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. Why would you do that?
Probably okay isn't okay. Call a cab, a car, or a friend.
Good choice.
Every year, 40% of all food in the U.S. never gets eaten.
40%. That's almost half the food we produce.
Food waste is a serious problem. It impacts all of us.
And it's expensive. Your family is throwing $1,500 a year in the trash.
We're working hard to put food waste on the chopping block.
And you can do the same at home.
Learn how to cook it, store it, and share it.
Just don't waste it.
Go to SaveTheFood.com.
After 15 years of smoking, Eva Marie quit. There's a new lung cancer screening that could save her life. You stopped smoking. Now start screening. Learn more at savedbythescan.org.
The USC football team looks ahead to a primetime top 25 matchup against the Utah Utes for Parents Weekend this upcoming Saturday. Before they look ahead, the Trojans came back to the friendly confines of the Coliseum this past weekend to play Oregon State. The Beavers rolled into Expo Park looking to get their first conference win, but Sam Darnold and the USC offense was having none of that. Darnold opened the game with a touchdown throw to wide receiver Tyler Vaughns and threw two more on the day to wide receiver Deontay Burnett and tight end Josh Follow. Despite 3 turnovers on the day, the offense put up 38 points against OSU's 10 for a convincing win. Despite a 5-1 record, the Trojans are facing a litany of injuries. Tight end Daniel Imatorbhebhe has yet to play this season. Both running back Stephen Carr and sack machine Porter Gustin were held out of the Oregon State game. Linebacker Cam Smith hobbled off the field against OSU, and Vianney Telemevo is out for the year with a torn pectoral muscle. Utah is coming off a home loss against Stanford, so look for SC to capitalize on home field advantage and this past week's momentum. We have sports correspondent Julia Poe here to talk about the impact one young receiver can have against the Utes.
On a slow passing day, freshman Tyler Vaughn stood out, leading the wide receiving corps with 5 catches for 68 yards. Vaughn also picked up his first touchdown as a Trojan, burning his defender to haul in a 37-yard toss from Darnold to score on the opening drive. After the win over Oregon State, Vaughn is third on the team in receiving with 222 yards. 157 of those yards came in the team's last 2 games, as Vaughn has become one of Darnold's favorite targets. He now trails just behind senior Stephen Mitchell, who has 266 yards on the season, while Deontay Burnett remains well ahead with 527. Vaughn was one of several young players to shine against Oregon State this week, with freshman tight end Josh Follow grabbing his first career reception and touchdown in the same play in the third quarter. At the start of the season, the youth of the wide receiving unit was a concern for the Trojans, but as these young players continue to develop, Darnold will have a wider range of targets at his disposal, which could be key for the team as it enters the second half of the season. Back to you, Nick.
Thank you, Julia. Men's water polo had a big weekend, playing in 2 highly competitive games, the first against Long Beach State. USC had control with an 8-5 lead and just 4 minutes left. Long Beach came storming back, tying the game on a skipper from Keegan Wicken to tie the game 8-8 and send it to overtime. The Trojans were too powerful, though, in the overtime periods, with Matt Meyer, Marko Vavic, and Grant Stein netting goals to make it 11-9 for a win. 6-3 against Santa Barbara put the squad at 18-1 on the season. Water polo has the weekend off and will host their alumni game at the Utangzhou Aquatic Center this Saturday. Today's national sports focus is all about the MLB playoffs, as all 4 series play games today. The Red Sox hosted the Astros in Game 4 of the ALDS this afternoon. After Andrew Benintendi put the Sox up 3-2 with a homer, the Astros stormed back to take a 5-3 lead into the 9th. Boston third baseman Rafael Devers hit a solo home run in the 9th to make it 5-4, but it was not enough as the Astros advanced to the ALCS. The Chicago Cubs took advantage of playing their first playoff game at Wrigley this season, beating the Washington Nationals 2-1. Cubs first baseman Anthony Rizzo hit a bloop single to center in the 8th, putting the Cubs up 2-1 for good, giving them a 2-1 series lead. And the Cleveland Indians are in the Bronx to play the Yankees, where it is the bottom of the 5th. The Yankees have a 5-3 lead over the Indians. The last game of the night features an all-star pitching matchup, with the Dodgers' Yu Darvish taking a 2-0 series lead against the Diamondbacks' Zach Greinke in Arizona. And ESPN anchor Jamel Hill is back in the spotlight again. Despite not being suspended after tweeting her political views weeks ago, Hill posted tweets claiming that the Dallas Cowboys and Miami Dolphins football teams were forcing players to sell out by making them stay in the locker room or stand during the national anthem, as opposed to kneeling. ESPN released a statement saying Hill previously acknowledged letting her colleagues and company down with an impulsive tweet. In the aftermath, all employees were reminded of how individual tweets may reflect negatively on ESPN and that such actions would have consequences, hence this decision. ESPN has suspended Hill for 2 weeks, and it will be interesting to follow how the sports media giant handles her future with the company. Dan, we got a big game this weekend against Utah. Top 25 matchup, prime time on ABC with the parents coming in. What are we thinking for a prediction?
Absolutely. You know, I got the parents coming in, so I'm hoping positive news. I got a win for USC, Nick. And next, we'll have the latest on that destructive fire in Anaheim.
Don't ignore the subtext. It's on us to intervene in sexual assault. Because we can. Take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Hey, look, it's those guys. Are you good to drive?
I'm fine.
How many did you have?
I should be fine.
You should be?
Go and step out of the vehicle for me.
See ya, buddy. Good luck. So turns out, buzz driving and drunk driving, they're the same thing, and it costs around $10,000. So not worth it.
At least 9 Orange USD schools will be closed tomorrow because of a destructive fire in Anaheim. Let's check in now with our Claudia Buccio. She is live at the command post where firefighters just wrapped up a press conference. Claudia?
Thanks, Dan and Sophia. So the fire keeps those numbers rising. So as of right now, there's 5,000 structures that are endangered, stretching from Orange, Anaheim, and Tustin. Just to give you a bigger picture, it was 2,500 acres that were being burned. Now it's 4,500 to 5,000. So if you can see right behind me, there's some firefighters, and they're trying to grab all their things because now the new command post will be in Grand Irvine Park, no longer Yorba Linda Regional Park. And they also mentioned that there, as of right now, there's only one minor injury. That's been one of a firefighter. He's already being treated, and as of now, their classes are canceled at 9 Orange County schools, and they are recommending that if you want the latest updates on this fire, to go on Twitter under Canyon Fire, #CanyonFire2, and there will be more information on evacuation centers. And winds are the biggest enemy for firefighters right now, so they're battling with the weather. So this is the latest information that I have, and I'll send it back to you. This is Claudia Buccio reporting live from Yorba Linda Regional Park. Back to you.
Thank you very much. I'm Dan Toomey.
And I'm Sophia Bosk. Have a great night.